Hello, folks. Welcome to the Genuinely Interested podcast. My name is Roy Bensfee. I'm your host. And this week on the podcast, we have Michael Chiesa. Now, Michael is an MMA fighter and he fights for the UFC. I believe he's ranked number 8 at the moment at the 170 division. And yeah, he's one of the top guys. He's fought some of the top fighters in the world. I'm talking Masvidal, Jim Miller, RDA, really Ally Quinta back in the day. Just some of the top guys that has ever fought in the 155 or 170 division. And, I'm happy that he made the move up to 170 from 155. I think there's a lot of fighters. You see Darren Till, he went up from 170 to 185. Dustin Poirier went up from 145 to 155. And I think more and more fighters are going to start going up a weight class because cutting so much weight it affects the way they fight the next day. It's just so much weight to cut, and you just perform better not cutting as much weight. We saw that with TJ Dillashaw, and I mean, it's endless the amount of people I can just rattle off right now. But at 170, he looks amazing. 3 wins in a row, and yeah, hopefully he can get 1 or 2 more fights, and then it's gold. I think he can easily be a champion within a year or two if if the stars align and COVID allows it, and he gets a few guys in the top 5. So we'll see how things play out. But I had a great time talking to him. He was in his house in Washington. And yeah, we talked about bats. They had a bat incident, hilarious. We talked about a potentially shitting yourself before a fight incident, which was absolutely hilarious. One of the funniest stories I've heard, and you should definitely stick around. It's I think it's towards the end of the podcast that he tells that story, and it's something I've always thought about. I was like, man, what happens like if you need to go? It's like it's fight time, cameras are on, live event, pay-per-view. And you're like, your bowels are telling you that, it's go time. What do you do in that situation? And I guess you just power through. There's nothing to do. The fans at home aren't going to wait. So the story that he tells is really hilarious. And yeah, I think the most important and interesting aspect for me was just the authenticity in which Michael presents himself. A lot of fighters are in the hopes of getting their name out there. They will put on a persona or some sort of a character, and Mike just seems to be embracing himself and just being who he is. And I think that authenticity shines, and I think that's why fans have been flocking to him and really embracing who he is recently. And I think that's the best way to gain a following. Just be who you are, be authentic. If you're not a shit talker, don't be a shit talker. If you are a shit talker, then do it. Just do what you're good at. Don't try to copy what someone else does because they're making money off it. That's usually not the best way to go, regardless of industry. I think we as a society reward people who are genuine and authentic and creative in their fields. And as a society, we tend to flock to those people, whatever you want to call it, magnetic people, whatever it is. But I think authenticity is a key factor in presenting oneself, especially when you have to be, in front of the internet, in front of cameras all the time, doing interviews all the time. Eventually, if you are putting on some sort of facade or a persona, that shit's going to fade and people are going to see through you. So you might as well be you. And Mike does a great job of that. And he's, funny and fun and still respectful and humble and just awesome fighter. He's got some really great fights. If you haven't seen him, I think all the fights are available on Fight Pass. So, you can check him out. And yeah, I just had a fun time. I always love talking to fighters. It's probably one of the things that I love doing the most. I've always been a martial arts fan, from K1 to MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing, karate. When I was a kid, I used to watch all the Jean-Claude movies and Chuck Norris and all those guys. So always been a big fan. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the episode. As far as sharing it, guys, please share the episode, subscribe, rate, review the episode. And I'm sure if you have friends, family that are fight fans, they're definitely going to enjoy this episode. Mike really opens up about a lot of different things. So it was definitely a fun one. Yeah. And without further ado, here is this week's guest, Michael Chiesa.
The Genuinely Interested Podcast.
All right, and we're live. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I've been a fan for many years, been watching you fight, and I'm happy to have you on.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man.
How's quarantine treating you?
It's been good. It was pretty challenging here in Washington. We had, our governor kind of locked us down for a while, just kind of like along with the rest of the West Coast states. But it was challenging in the sense that all the gyms were closed and stuff like that. So it was pretty hard. And then once I built my own home gym, things got a little bit easier, and it wasn't too bad, And then I live with my fiance. We get along very well, and I think that if we didn't get along, that it'd be a big struggle. You know what I mean? So it was pretty smooth sailing.
Yeah, I saw some stat I think it was in China, where they saw like the divorce rates like shoot up something like 500%.
Yeah,
from just people being in that close proximity for too long.
I could see that, and the thing that's tough, with this whole quarantine thing is, I work for Spokane School District as a wrestling coach, and a lot of these kids not every kid has the greatest home life, you know what I mean? And a situation like this with the quarantine and them now just recently, yesterday, they announced here in Spokane, on the east side of Washington State, they're going to be doing basically all the schooling from home. And, you take the divorce rates, that's tough. But for me, I think a lot about the kids, and I think they're in a particularly tough situation. I grew up in a pretty rough environment myself, so I know how life would be if I was in quarantine in that type of situation. So that's got to be. It's just tough all around in any situation, whether you're in a good relationship, bad relationship, good home life, bad home life. Yeah. It's a very tricky situation right now.
Yeah, we're in uncharted waters. It's not something that we've ever had to do before, where it's like you have to choose the lesser evil, right? Like, do you send your kids to school and then potentially, there's another outbreak, and then, or do you keep them at home, and then that comes with its own set of problems? And the same with work, right? Do you go to work? Do you stay home? There's just all these back and forth that we have to, I don't know. It's these ethical gymnastics that we have to do to figure out what's the least worst option for us right now in this 2020. But I think 2020, like everyone's thinking 2020. I don't know that 2020 wasn't necessarily going to be magically that much better. I think it's going to, there's going to be some sort of a trial run with the vaccine and with all these different things that it's not immediate. It's not like, ooh, January 1st, everything's great.
Right. I know, and it sucks because this year started off so good for me. I was I won my fight in January, and that was a big one for me. And then a week later, I proposed to my fiance, or I proposed to my girlfriend.
Congratulations!
Now my fiance. Yeah, that was a week later on February 1st. And I remember we were in Dubai. We were in Dubai when I proposed. And I just remember we were having a conversation. They're like, "This is going to be the best year ever." We're sitting in our hotel room. We got this nice, dude, this year's going to be awesome. Look where we are right now. And then a month later, I'm like, look where we are now. We're stuck on the couch. This sucks. And I wanted to get back to competition sooner. And, that's another thing that kind of sucked for both of us is I wanted to get back to competing. And in July, that's usually kind of the time frame I've been on the last few years. And I was going to have a surgery in end of March, early April, and elective surgeries got postponed. And so I had to postpone my surgery. So now I'm in recovery right now and kind of waiting to see how this thing heals up. So hopefully get in there before the end of the year. But, and it was, there's just been kind of challenges all around, there's just there's no way. And it's weird that all these challenges are coming from different directions, and I'm just at home. Like it's like I'm out in the real world every day. It's a little easier now, but I mean, like these things were just coming out of left field. I'm like, I haven't even left my house, and adversity just it won't stop nipping at my heels.
Yeah. Now, I mean, so are you still active? Are you still training at home, or now with recovery, you're doing a little bit less?
A lot less, and it sucks because
A lot less?
I thought about postponing the surgery because it's nothing that's like, it's not like I had any ligaments, that were torn or I was structurally compromised. It was just, I had some hardware that I needed to have taken out of my body that's been there for a long time. And it was just starting to give me problems over the years. And, I never really thought about taking it out. And then after consulting with the team at the UFC PI, they were just like, dude, you should probably just get this taken out. It's only going to get worse, and so
Yeah.
surgery was supposed to be a smooth little 30 to 45 minutes, probably about 4 weeks recovery. And it turned out to be 5.5 hours long. And
Jesus.
kind of like, yeah. So I think I'm optimistic. I think I could still fight by the end of the year. I just got to let this bone graft heal. And that takes 6 weeks. I'm at week 4. So, I got another 2 weeks to where this bone graft takes. And just got to get my quad on my left leg is just like this big. I just got I have skinny legs as it is. So, I just got to make sure that my body's 100% and, see how things shake out.
Are you doing any physiotherapy?
Yeah, for sure. And it's cool. This is like obviously when I go to Las Vegas a lot now that I'm able to travel a little bit, like I went there for 2 weeks, came home, went back, had my surgery, stayed there for another week. I'm actually going back on Thursday. I'll probably go there for another week. But this is kind of cool. The first year I ever coached wrestling, there's this kid named Dylan Lemery. And he's one of the best kids I ever coached. And I'm not just saying that because he'll probably watch this. But awesome kid. He was team captain, always worked hard. He went on to wrestle 4 years in college. One of the few guys I've coached that's like gone on to do something like that. But he's my physical therapist now because he went to school and he did all that stuff. So now he's a registered, he's an official physical therapist. He's got his strength conditioning certified, and he's got all these certifications and stuff. And I'm in there calling it, going, yes, sir, no, sir. And he's like, dude, this is too weird for me. Like, you just stop calling me sir. I'm like, this is who I am in the real world, Dylan. Like, doesn't matter who you are. I'm on a yes or no basis with all adults, you know what I mean? And you're an adult now. So it's kind of cool. But, and he's very, it's
the roles have been flipped.
Exactly. And he's very invested in my career. He's just always been a big supporter. He was there before things ever took off when I was just slanging beers at Anheuser-Busch here in Spokane. I was just a beer guy chasing a dream and, just coaching when I could. And it's just cool that things have come full circle that now we're both where we were meant to be. I'm in the UFC. He finished his schooling. He's certified certified physical therapist, strength conditioning coach. So it's pretty cool. It's cool that him and I are like synced back up and like working together.
Yeah, that's awesome. It kind of reminds me when I was in the Army for the first year, my captain, there's a very regimented distance between like the captain and the soldiers. And he would just torment me like in a good way, not like in a bad way, but like we had like a respect between us. And then maybe like, after I got out of the Army, maybe like a year or so after, we met up and we were just sitting like as civilians, as like, he was only maybe 2 or 3 years older than me. But it was just such a weird experience just talking to him like normally, just like as another human. And it was similar experience. So maybe take us a little bit back, maybe give us some background. Where'd you grow up? What was your initial martial art of preference? How'd you get into MMA?
So I was born in Aurora, Colorado. Parents split up, and then they split up here in Spokane. So we moved from Aurora to Spokane, and then I grew up in a little town called Otis Orchards, and not very many people. And initially, I was just kind of like a skateboarder nerd. Like I was just super into skateboarding, and I remember when I was like 9 years old, I was up at my dad's house, and I'm at this kid Jeff Arnold's house, and his dad was like downstairs. We went downstairs to play, and his dad was watching this fighting stuff. And I'm used to seeing boxing. Like I remember being in my cousin's house watching Mike Tyson pay-per-views and stuff. And so we're like, I'm going thinking he's watching boxing, and it's like this weird thing. There's like these big, weird looking dudes with like mullets and like karate uniforms and stuff. And his dad would let us sit and watch it until it got like bloody or violent, and then he'd make us go in the other room. And so we were just getting like pulled in and out. I'm like, God, man, I'm like missing the good stuff, you know? And I remember when I was sitting there as I'm watching it on the TV, like on the ground, it was like the TV was up on this like TV stand. I just was holding like the VHS case, and it was just like this bald guy like holding this like globe, you know what I mean? Like you've seen the old UFC logo. And so that's when I was 9. And then when I was just a skateboarder nerd around like, 12, 13 years old. And I shouldn't say skateboarder nerd because I still love skateboarding a lot. It's like it's still part of my life. So I shouldn't say that.
Really?
Technically, I still am a skateboarder nerd. Yeah. You can't take that away from me. You can't take that out of me. I can't, not even if I wanted to. But I'm like skateboarding by the
skateboarders are always the cool guys. No, I thought the skateboarders were the cool guys.
It taught me a lot about being tough. I'll tell you that much. I mean, you can only hit the pavement so many times, definitely made me tough. But I remember we were skateboarding down to the local video store, and we're just like, I'm walking through the video store, just rummaging around, and I found that freaking same VHS case. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like telling my buddy, I'm like, dude, I was watching this at my buddy Jeff's house like 5 years ago, and there was like karate dudes and like big, huge guys, and like it was crazy. And of course, like the tape cassette case said like rated X, like banned in 49 states, 8 countries, something crazy. And so it took me, I had to beg my mom for like a month, just like, please let me rent this. Like, please, please, please let me rent it. It wasn't until Kevin Jackson, when he fought Frank Shamrock, I saw Kevin Jackson's name on there, and I had done like a wrestling camp clinic that he was at. It was after the 99 Worlds, I think. The 99 Worlds that they had in Spokane. And I was like, Mom, Kevin Jackson was on here, and he coached a wrestling camp. I was like, you have to let me get this now. And so that was kind of like the selling point. And so that was the first fight I ever sat and watched, like, and was able to process, like, and know what was going on. It was Kevin Jackson versus Frank Shamrock. And I remember I was like telling my buddy, I'm like, this Kevin Jackson guy's a badass. Like, he's an Olympic gold medalist. Like, this is going to be sweet. And he got armbarred in like 10 seconds by Frank Shamrock. And I had no idea what an armbar was. I was just like, what the hell? That makes no sense. That guy, Kevin Jackson, took him down, put him on his back, and lost. That doesn't compute when I was a wrestler. That makes 0 sense. So that's what drew me to it. I was like, I was so baffled by that one little short fight. I was like, I need to know what this is later on in life. And that was where the attraction came from, for sure.
So you went into wrestling. You wrestled throughout high school, right? And college?
So I started wrestling probably when I was around like 10 or 11. Otis Orchard, being a small town, like essentially it's just going to be a tough wrestling community. So I started wrestling like around middle school, and it's just like that's kind of like the cool kids skateboarded and wrestled. So those are the two things I did, and the two things I still love very much. And they kind of led, and it's a very uncanny combo. But those are the two paired together that kind of led me into the sport of mixed martial arts. Like, skateboarding is like it's such a progressive sport, whether you're trying to progress the sport or you're just trying to progress yourself. And you got to take a lot of punishment to do it. You got to really learn how to like hit the pavement a lot and crash and, get really roughed up in order to just land a trick one time. So it's like, you kind of get that sense of like how to take punishment and how to like battle through injuries and stuff moving into mixed martial arts. And of course, wrestling, that's just the first true martial art. It's weird to say. A lot of like hard-nosed wrestlers would say it's not a martial art, but they don't see things from my perspective. So that skateboarding was kind of like the foundation, and then wrestling was the martial art that kind of paired with that and kind of like accompanied it, So, there's other fighters I've talked to that are like that, like Dan Ige skateboarded, Eric Spicely skateboarded. Dan Ige actually wrestled in college. So him and I talk about this a lot. Like, dude, skateboarding and wrestling are actually a great combination for getting in mixed martial arts, and I've learned how to battle injuries. I've fought through injuries. I fought Rafael dos Anjos with a broken nose. I've fought UFC 157 5 weeks after knee surgery. Like, I've done some pretty crazy shit. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
that I attribute to like skateboarding, like that, just like that willingness to like take punishment, like see if I could keep pushing type thing.
Dude, that's the thing. I think a lot of people, they'll see fights, right? And I don't think they understand how tough the fighters are. They'll see like kicks, like if you check a kick, they don't even register how much that hurts, right? Or I don't know, getting your nose broken or liver shots and getting elbowed in the face and this huge gash and on your forehead, all these different things. And you look at the fighters and they show usually zero to no emotions. And people who are, I don't want to say casuals, but maybe that have never really sparred or done any, too much martial arts, don't know how much that shit hurts. They just have no idea.
And that's something I'm okay with. It's like you get to a point where you get pretty callous to the you get very callous to the naysayers and the people that kind of like downplay those types of things. You get used to the people
Yeah.
that kind of, there's a lot of bad mouthing in this sport. I think Mike Tyson said it best. Social media made it too. I don't know the exact quote, but something along the lines of like social media made it too convenient for people to talk shit without getting hit for it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying if like someone said these things to my face or was like, "Oh, you're a pussy," like that checking a leg kick isn't that bad. It's like, have you ever checked the kick? You know what I mean? Like, it does not
Oh,
feel good. It does not feel, whether you're the one
no.
checking or you're the one getting checked. It's like it's not the most pleasuring feeling. So it's like, I'm not saying I would lash out at people like that, but it's like it definitely gave them a nice little buffer to like toss a lot of criticism. And it's the same type of people that will watch an NFL game and call a player, a pussy for not catching a pass or taking a hard hit. It's commonplace, honestly, in all sports. In all sports, you're gonna have people that are like that. I just feel like in MMA, it's just a lot worse. I feel like mixed martial arts and NFL, I think, get the worst criticism from the people that watch it and the fans and the critics.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think specifically, well, in MMA specifically, no one's gonna, or even if NFL, I guess, like those guys are massive. No one's gonna come up to you and tell you the things that they're writing on Twitter or on Instagram. No one's gonna tell you that to your face. Like that just
No,
doesn't happen, right?
no,
You're
no,
gonna have, they're gonna,
it does not happen
they'll
at
be
all.
complete psychos. No, that would never happen. Only on social media.
Yeah,
But yeah, like you said, it gives them that anonymity to sit in some basement, and usually they're not the people. Because if you've done some basic martial arts and you've getting your ass whooped a few times in the gym, you're like, okay, shit, this is hard, man. Like I need to have another level of respect for this, for the people
yeah,
doing it on the highest level possible that humans have ever done it.
yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think, and then for me, I get a lot of worse criticism because it's like, people hate, everybody loves to see knockouts. Everybody loves a good striker. I mean, I don't blame them. I'm the same way, but like, I get a lot of criticism for my style or like, the way I win fights and stuff. And there's a lot more that goes on to meets the eye. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's easy to analyze when someone's throwing punches and spinning back fists and strikes and things like that. But when it comes to ground fighting, there's so much more. There's so many little details that you can't pick up in watching a fight on TV. So it's like sometimes it's like I'll get the criticism and I don't care. Like I said, I'm so callous to it; it doesn't affect me at all. But it's like when people are just like
Yeah.
the casual fan will be like, all you do is sniff jocks. If you were in the cage with me, I'd knock your ass out. I'm like, oh my God, if I got my hands locked around you, you wouldn't even know what the fuck to do with yourself. Pardon my language. I don't know if I can swear on here, but you
Fucking swear as much as you want.
I'm always like, man, if I could just grab you, you would shit your pants. You know what I mean? Like you think to the casual quarterback back home, they're, what do they say? The armchair quarterback back home
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, you jock sniffer, I'd beat your ass in the cage fight." I'm like, whatever, man. Like, sure, you would. You got
I
me.
mean,
You got me good.
you famously said that, I think it was the quote was, "I'd rather look ugly and win than look pretty and lose." And obviously, everyone wants to get a W. But do you still feel that way with the current landscape that is MMA?
Oh, for sure. And and the thing, the way it is now is I had like a small window of time where I really was like kind of trying to change my style And that's in regards to how I competed, as well as how I conducted myself in the pre-fight buildup. Kind of got into the talking trash a little bit. Kind of thought maybe I need to. I'm always trying to broaden my skill set. There's no, like, when it comes to training, I don't leave any stone unturned. I'm always focusing on every facet of the sport. But I was thinking, like, maybe it's time for me to just focus on, like, really trying to knock people out and make my statement that way. That's what people like to see. And it didn't work out for me. And it's not like I didn't go out there and get knocked out. Like, I did fine. I stood up and traded with Anthony Pettis. He's one of the best strikers in the UFC, one of the best strikers in all mixed martial arts. Didn't do too bad, lost, you know what I mean? But I still looked at the big picture and was like, this is just not who I am. Like, I need to it's not adhere to, like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to be out pleasing people. I need to focus on winning and doing what's best for me and being true to who I am. And I'm not a trash talker. I'm not going to deviate from being the person that that I really am, and the style that got me here, just to please other
Yeah.
people. You know what I mean? I'm trying to please people that don't matter. The people that matter don't have anything bad to say about the way I fight. They're going to watch my fights no matter what. And I think the best way to get where I need to go or where I want to go is just winning and being true to who I am. You know what I mean? So I know, trash talk's great. People love it. It's like, well, it's just something I'm not going to do. And that's to a certain extent. Like, we see how far someone like Colby Covington's taken it when it comes to the trash talking. I don't think he really particularly gained himself any fans doing it to the extent that he did. But guys like Khabib and Kazmat and these guys, and the way they talk trash, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like, I can see why people gravitate to it. But either way, it's just not who I am.
Yeah. And okay. So there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of different things I want to touch on. But yeah, I think authenticity is key. I think if you are a trash talker, trash talk. But I think if
Mhm.
you're not a trash talker, just don't try. Like, I think authenticity comes through. And, someone like Kobe, you can see that it's not authentic. Like, he's a great fighter and everything, but you can just see it's not authentic. You can see
No.
it's a role, it's a character that he puts on. And that's why he gets a lot of the hate. I think if that's who he really was, because I've seen a few videos where he's his real self, and he seems like just a nice guy, like on that, in those videos.
Mhm.
So I think he would actually do himself more of a favor if he would let that person shine. But that's onto him. But as far as like the trash talk, like you said, you don't really get the trash talking. You don't really go dirty or personal with your opponents, other than that one shot with Kevin Lee, which was famous.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
do you think? Yeah. Do you think that some fighters need that in order to get themselves fired up? And is that like a conscious decision on your end to not do that?
It's a conscious decision on my end not to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to particularly like the guy that I'm fighting. Um,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean I need to put it out there. You know what I mean? That's like if Kevin Lee and I have a rematch, I know how he is. I would just kind of stick true to myself. I'm not a guy that needs to get fired up that way. I think Michael Bisping said it, that's why he likes to talk a lot of trash before his fights, is because he likes to kind of get in that mode. You know what I mean? I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's who said it is. And Bisping's one of the famous trash talkers, most famous trash talkers in the sport. You know what I mean? I just watched a highlight video.
Yeah.
I was just sitting on the floor in my kitchen watching a highlight video, waiting for this bat to fly out of my house last night. It's a true story. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was wild. but yeah,
How'd you get it out?
well, the best way to do it is you've got to shut the lights off, and you got to just let it kind of like shut the lights off, open one door or window, and just kind of let nature take its course. And he freaking wouldn't leave forever. And I hate bats. I just hate little squeaky animals. I'm just like, they're weird. They make weird noises. And he actually went, instead of going out the door, he went through the crack. I live in a log house, as you can see behind me. And he
Yeah.
snuck through a crack upstairs. So now today, when I get done with this interview and when I get done with physical therapy at 11:30, I'm going to be running around this house, chinking spaces on the logs, because I don't want another freaking bat in here. It's creepy.
No, dude, you do
It's
not
weird.
want to. Yeah, no.
I live in
Yeah,
the world.
there's no way.
It comes with the territory, but I just don't want to deal with it anymore.
No, there's no way I'm sleeping with a bat in the house. That's just not that's not happening. Like I barely sleep with a mosquito in the room. Like I'm not letting a bat, just roam around freely in the house.
Oh, dude, it was wild, and like he kept. Usually they'll fly out in like a minute or two. It doesn't take too long. Um,
Yeah.
but I think this guy was just trying to get out from where he came in, and I like that. It's a really high vaulted ceiling in here, and he would just like go fly and stick on the wall, and he'd be like doing all this weird stuff, kind of like licking himself and rubbing himself, and they're creepy. Like, shout out to Roots of Fight because they sent me this huge gift package that I haven't even like gotten through yet. I think I wore one shirt out of the whole thing, but the shirts are in bags.
Yeah.
And so every time he flew up there, I'd like frisbee these shirts up there to get him to fly, and he'd do like one lap and then go back. And so I'm just like sitting here frisbeeing these shirts, like get this freaking thing out of here, man! Like, God. And then he just snuck out of the crack. He came in. So I waited a while to see if he'd come back, checked around. He's gone. And so now I'm going to fix all these holes. And I just have to get through August. It's like August. It's like a summer thing, you know?
Oh yeah. You need to watch. There was a Bear Grylls episode I watched once where he was trying to get bats out of a cave, and he lit smoke like inside, I guess, the cave, and the smoke made the bats leave the cage. And then he had this like net thing that he made, from the ground because he kind of uses. I mean, who knows? It's all semi fake, but he
Yeah.
caught a bat, and then he like, I think he ate the bat, but that's a different story.
God damn
No,
it.
no, no.
No. And
Yeah.
then you got the coronavirus thing, which they said is from someone eating
Yep.
bat. And I got
Yep.
bats.
Don't want that.
We've had it. It's like hit and miss. Like last year, we didn't have a single interaction with the bat in the house at all. They just like, you can't fight the fact that this bats love old wood, and this is just a big wood house. So they kind of like nest in weird little places outside. I can live with that because at one bat, and you can look this up, one adult bat kills 1,000 mosquitoes in a night.
Really?
Yes, look it up. It's a real thing. Like they control bug population so much, so you never want to get rid of, like, especially for me. I live out in the woods, on 5 acres. There's bugs everywhere, and they regulate mosquitoes a lot. So it's like, I think next year I'm going to try to build some bat boxes and try to relocate them. But you don't want them off the property. They work wonders for controlling the bug population. And I think I've gotten like one mosquito bite this whole time I've lived in this house. I don't get mosquito bites out here. It's nice.
I have a new appreciation for bats now. Who knew?
Yeah, they're so creepy.
No idea.
Couldn't you just be like a bunny or so? I wish, you know what I mean? Like, no, you got to look like something from a freaking horror movie. They got like flat faces, and they're small. Like these things, like
Draculas.
They're about this big on the wall. I mean, we're talking about the size of like a small, like about as big as a round tennis ball. But when they freaking take off and fly, they get like this big, and it's just like, fuck, and this thing's in the house, and he's dive bombing trying to get out, and I'm like fucking yelling at my fiance, get this thing out of here. Like, if a mountain lion got in our house, or a bear or something my size, let me handle it. But if it's a little teeny pipsqueak animal, I'm gonna let her handle it. Like that's
a fiance job.
That's a fiance thing. Yeah, for sure.
They've also been like vilified. They've also like, throughout, at least modern history, whenever you see like Dracula vampire movies, it's always bats, right? We have like a bad connotation when it comes to bats. We think of them as like evil animals, but it seems like they do a good job, man. They take care of the bugs, take care of mosquitoes.
And
seems like it's
Yep.
It's awesome. So, I mean, I want to talk about, because I remember you spoke about the Pettis fight, and in that fight, on the way in, I think you just barely made it, right? It was just like a really tough weight cut, and I always wondered, like, you were a huge 155er, and now at 170, I mean, you look phenomenal. Why do fighters, and you're seeing this with fighters in every weight division, maybe except obviously heavyweight, but they're cutting so much weight, and then that's really affecting their performance the following day. Like I saw a video yesterday of Masvidal cutting weight, and even to 170, where he used to be a 55er. And I guess for him, it was because it was a short notice fight.
Yeah.
But he looked so drained, so fatigued, just like zero energy.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if what you've done is very smart, and you think maybe other fighters will kind of join that as well.
I think so. I think that we're getting out of that era finally. I think that era is finally going to be put behind us. I don't see nearly as many guys cutting a ton of weight on fight week as I did, you know, three years ago, 2, 3 years ago. I always say it's guys like Dustin Poirier that kind of led the way for me.
Yeah.
You know, I watched him. He was a huge 45er. I mean, this guy was massive. I remember when I met him, he was still fighting at 45, and I'm like, this guy is very barrel chested, very wide shouldered. And I don't say barrel chested like in the sense that he's like fat. I'm like barrel chested, and like this guy's just yoked.
Yeah.
And I saw the success he was having right out the gates. You know what I mean? I mean, he beat a lot of good guys. Had that one little hiccup to Michael Johnson, but other than that, just was rolling on guys, and it just really kind of got my wheels turning. And I can't say this: if I got to fight Pettis the first time like I was supposed to in Brooklyn, I was very well conditioned for that fight. I was in great shape. My weight, I think I was like 6 pounds over before everything happened. They kind of pulled me out of the fight. Or they actually pulled me out of the fight. But you know, I did just going into that next Pettis fight. You know, I remember being maybe about at the halfway marker of camp, and I remember telling Bo Sandoval, the strength coach at the PI, we're just getting ready to work out. We're getting warmed up and stuff, and I just remember telling him, I'm like, man, win, lose or draw, I'm done at 55 after this fight. I'm just like, it's so hard to like. It's easy to fight, you know. The weight cut's never easy, but it's just one thing when it's like if you have the, you know, 5 months basically to prepare to get your body right to make that cut, it's feasible. But like, you know, just going into that Pettis fight, had a lot of things kind of working against me, and just I think that alone was a testament. Like if I would have won that fight, I would have stuck to it. Even if it would have shot me up the rankings, I still would have been like, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this to my body. You know, and there's no excuse, but there is a culprit that kind of was the catalyst that started the whole, you know, the snowball effect into missing weight for that Pettis fight. And that was when I broke my foot. Probably it was 10 or 12 days before the fight. I think it was 12 days before the fight. I broke my foot. And, you know, there's 10 crucial days of road work that you do there. Once you're tapering off from your strength training, you know, I'm focusing a lot just on road work, hitting mitts, a few contact practices, but really just focusing on the weight cut. And when I break my foot and I didn't get on a treadmill until the day before weigh-ins. I was able to kind of, you know, get my foot into a shoe and kind of gut it out. And it just was too little, too late. You know what I mean? I think that going back to what we were saying earlier about being tough and like how skateboarding has taught me how to push through injuries and like be mentally tough and see how much punishment I could take and still keep going and still succeed. I feel like that's one of my best attributes, but I feel like in that particular instance, it just worked against me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to still I'm going to go through with this fight. I can battle through this. I can battle through this weight cut. And then I get into the weight cut, and it was about 10 hours that we were cutting weight, and I still came up short. And that's when I kind of met my maker, where I was like, what am I doing right now? Like, this is my best attribute, and it still wasn't enough to get me through this. And that says something. You know what I mean? It's like that has gotten me through just about everything in life. And this one time, I just hit a wall. You know what I mean? And that was kind of like the wake up call. I mean, I already kind of knew going into the fight, I'm done at this weight class. Like I don't feel like I'm getting as much of myself as I could. I'm spending my training camp focused on cutting weight. I'm not getting any better skill wise because everything is just so surrounded by this weight cutting bullshit. And, you know, and then that happened. So, I mean, 10 hours in a hot bath, just really rethinking your life. And, you know, it's as crazy as it is, it's probably the only thing I'm embarrassed about in my whole career is the missing weight thing. I just think it's so unprofessional when guys do it. But at least I know I pushed myself to the brink, and it's not like I spent my whole camp being a dickhead and not eating good or not doing anything right. You know, you see a lot of guys miss weight because they push it off until the last minute, and they think they can drop 20, 30 pounds. You know, it doesn't work like that. And for me, that's not what it was. I was diligent. I did everything I always do. I'd never missed weight before, but then I hit that roadblock, less than 2 weeks before the fight. And that's when I tried to channel into that best part about me. It wasn't enough. You know what I mean? So I'm glad things worked out the way they did.
Yeah.
I'm glad I lost that fight. And that's weird to say. I'm glad I lost that fight. I'm glad I missed weight now. I wouldn't take any of that back if I could, because look where I am now. That whole thing that happened absolutely cemented my choice I had pondered 4 weeks before that about leaving this weight class. And now I'm 3-0 at welterweight, got some big wins. I'm back in the rankings, and I don't think I'd be here if that hadn't happened.
Do you think if that fight happens at 170, there's a different result?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to say that about every fight, and that's the thing. You run these fights back 10 times, and there's some difference going to happen every time, so it's not like, that's not me taking anything away from Anthony. He's a very skilled guy, dude. He's phenomenal. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer at this point in his career. I mean, he's done a lot for the sport.
Definitely.
But like I said, you run that fight back 10 times in 10 different scenarios, and you're going to get 10 different results. You know what I mean? So me being healthy, me being uninjured, not having the huge weight cut, going into the fight, it could be a very different fight. But I thank him for doing what he did to me that night, because it taught me a lot of lessons. And one of the biggest things I learned: be true to who I am. Don't cut a shit ton of weight, and stick to plan A. You know what I mean? Stick to plan A unless it's time. Unless plan A is not working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So learned a lot of good lessons that night. You only learn, that's the hard thing about this sport, is you don't learn unless you lose. When you win, it's like, yeah, you can go back and pick yourself apart. And I do a good job of that. I critique myself. I'm very hard. I can't stand to watch my fights, because I just see one little mistake and I'm like, oh God, this is a joke. You suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you learn the most when you lose, because you look at everything from such a different perspective. And, that's when you learn the best lessons, the hardest lessons, but they're the ones that are the most valuable.
100%. And I mean, look, you've fought some of the top talent in the UFC, the cream of the crop, RDA Pettis, Carlos Condit, Kevin Lee, Jim Miller, Masvidal, and Ali Quinta. And I mean, you're just pretty much, you're like early 30s now? You're hitting your prime right now.
42, in my prime. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're in your prime right now. And not that there are easy fights in the UFC. Obviously there's no easy fights, because you have the top guys in the world. But what if you had to kind of choose, let's say you have 2 or 3 more fights and then you have gold at the end of that, who would be those fights if you could choose?
I really want to fight. This is a tough question, because when I say there's guys I want to fight, it's not me looking at it from like the easy matchup or the dislike or anything like that. A lot of the guys I usually call out to fight are the guys I think can push me the most. You know what I mean? Like the guys that are the toughest. I was pleading for a fight with Tony Ferguson, and at one point I had it until I got injured. Who asked for a fucking fight with Tony Ferguson?
No one.
A psychopath. Like, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Like, I want to fight the guys that are the best of the best, the guys with the biggest names, and it's sheerly just to challenge myself. I think Gilbert Burns is going to be champion by the time when it comes down to me fighting for a title. I think Gilbert Burns is going to be the guy. So that's kind of like, I would love, and that's a guy that I respect a lot. We've had some friendly banter back and forth. We've communicated.
Yeah.
I wish that guy nothing but the best. I think he's phenomenal. And I'm a big jiu-jitsu guy. I love jiu-jitsu. And before he was in the UFC, he was very well credentialed, multiple time world champion in jiu-jitsu. So I'd love to fight him. I'd love to fight Colby. I think Colby could be, he would be a very challenging fight for me as well. Can't say I have the same amount of respect for him as I do Gilbert Burns. Still leave it at that. Guys like that. And then just, it's more about whoever comes first after that. Once I recover, I don't care who it is at this point. I need to get one win under my belt, and then I'm going to launch myself back into that heap of the guys. And I think it's only going to be 2 fights before I get to a title fight. I got a champions clause in my contract. Never had that before. I got 3 big wins under my belt, and I think the RDA fight kind of solidified that I am a threat. in this division. So I want to see how things play out. You know what I mean? There's a lot of good guys at welterweight. You know what I mean? You got Wonder Boy, who's right ahead of me. Damian Maia is still ahead of me. You know, Jeff Neal and Neil Magny, they're about to fight. I think both of those guys are super tough. There's a lot of good fights for me. They're all tough fights. I like it, but
Leon Edwards.
I want the guy with the most name value. You know, who look at, like you said, I fought a laundry list of names, household names,
Yeah.
and I want to keep it that way. Like I'd rather win big and lose big than have it be more minuscule, especially when it's like there's guys that are I just like I want to fight the guys with the biggest name value. I feel like I've had that nice kind of reputation in the sport is always fighting guys that are tough, top of the heap, household names, former champions, former contenders, future contenders, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Leon Edwards would be a great fight.
That's another great fight. It's just I don't even put him into the equation because I feel like I'd be closer to fighting a guy like Gilbert Burns than Leon, just because the guy deserves a title shot, and I feel pretty gutted for him. You know what I mean? He's just stuck in a bad situation with COVID and being locked down in England. And Gilbert Burns, I'm not going to say Gilbert slid into a spot, because Gilbert freaking did what he does best, and he stayed super active, and he just kept himself, he kept the attention on him at a time when Leon really couldn't. So, I really just I don't even really mention Leon, just because that guy needs to go fight for a title in his next fight. So it's like, I'm not even going to try, because it's just not going to happen. His management wouldn't let him fight me. And, I think he's very deserving of a title fight. I mean, the guy rattled off, it was like 7 or 8 wins in a row at welterweight. His only loss is Kamaru Usman. So there's a storyline there. There's a storyline between him and Masvidal too, so I think that guy deserves a big fight. And I can, maybe in a fight or two, I could see myself
piece of the soda.
Yeah. I could see myself fighting him at some point. I feel like I did a better job handling RDA than he did. But you don't want to go off perennial matchups. He's a tough guy. He's a young guy. It could happen down the road for sure.
Yeah, he's again, I don't know if that is the problem. It seems like it's the problem. He just wasn't able to. I don't know if it lacks that charisma, or maybe he's a little bit more shy and he doesn't promote himself as well. But he just, there's a few divisions that are very log jammed, and if you don't, I don't know, make a ruckus, or if you don't have a massive social media following, you tend to not get, you're not in the mix, you're not in the fold for whatever the reason is. And he's just one of those guys that unfortunately has been kind of like passed on a few times.
He has.
And unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. I feel bad for him. I think winning should, and you are right. Like in a logjam division, you got to do something to stand out. I think winning is always most important. And he's kind of a chirpy guy. Like he's gotten a little bit lippy in some of his, some of his interviews. He'll talk a little trash and stuff. But I just think that in the other thing that's a bummer is that they didn't have him fighting as much, and I don't know if that's something that he chose to do, or if that was something that's just that he didn't really have a say in. Being active is very important. You know what I mean? But I think he should have fought for the title. I think him and Usman should have sorted their business out by now. And, and then we have whoever wins that fighting Gilbert Burns. But Gilbert Burns, as much as I'm sitting here saying that Leon deserves a title fight, I still think Gilbert Burns is up first because he took the most chances. You know what I mean? And granted, he had more available to him than Leon did. But I mean, you go beat Damian Maia and you turn around, on pretty much short notice during a very tough time to train for a fight. The toughest time to train for a fight was when he fought Woodley, and it's like he went out, he took Leon's fight, he fought Woodley, and he not only did beat him, but I mean he dominated him. So it's like you got to go off of that. You can't be like he took Leon's fight because Leon couldn't fight. It's not like he pulled out with any other reason except the fact he couldn't get out of the country. It wasn't his fault. But he Burns took that number one contender fight. If Woodley beats Leon or Burns, he's back in a title fight. You know what I mean? In my opinion. So it's like whoever goes out and beats Woodley, that's going to be the guy that moves on. It just happened to be Gilbert Burns, and I'm excited for him and Usman just to see that they're both down to you don't see teammate versus teammate in the sport, and I think that that's going to make for a very special fight for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it goes to back to what we were talking about in the beginning. It's all COVID right now, and COVID is the real, you know, puppeteer. COVID will decide, I guess, if countries open up, if places can have fights again, if I don't know, borders reopen. It's just
Yeah,
it's tricky right now. So he's stuck in the UK. I guess they're very strict with their flights incoming and
yeah.
outgoing. So I guess
It's got to be
kind
something
of
like
do
that
that.
for sure.
So yeah, do you think because I've been UFC and MMA and just big martial arts fan for a good portion of my life. And with you, I feel like there's a shift that happened in maybe the last couple of years. And if I can use maybe DC as an example,
Yeah,
he DC wasn't really liked in the whole John Jones saga. He was
no,
not liked at all. People were saying a lot of bad shit about him, and John Jones was the favorite, and everyone loved John Jones, even though John Jones did the worst type of things that he did in his personal life. But that's a different story. And then at some point, DC became one of the most popular, one of the most loved athletes in the UFC. There was I can't like put my finger on it, but there was some point that he just did that transition. Now everyone loves DC. DC's like across the board, he's extremely loved in the community. And I feel like there's something similar that happened to you. And again, it's not something I can put my finger on, but I think maybe a few years ago, you were maybe the underdog or maybe not as liked. And now, like, again, it's pretty much obviously there are, some people in the basement that are haters, but for the most part, like very much loved, very much welcomed. And the fans have kind of like embraced you. Do you feel that as well?
yeah. I definitely feel, especially over the last couple of years, I think just me getting back to being who I really am. You
Yeah.
know, there's some stupid fans out there, but for the most part, there's a lot of intelligent ones. And I think that when I was trying to fit the mold that is kind of become the norm of the sport, I think that it was very transparent and it wasn't authentic. And I just, quite frankly, I was just kind of trying to force myself to be an asshole almost. And I just
Yeah.
decided to stay true to who I am, and and it's paid off for me. I mean, winning is everything. I mean, you'd be surprised when you lose. And I'm very aware of the people that say nice things, and there's been times when I've lost, and they'll turn around and they'll say bad things, and then they'll get back on board when you win another fight. So there can be some fluctuation in that sense, but I just think just being true to who I am. You know what I mean? There's a lot of fans out there. I still go on the forums. I still go on the underground and stuff. And there's guys that are still like, Kiss is a fucking whiner. And I just can't get behind. There's always going to be naysayers, but I do feel like for the most part, like I have got the fans rallied behind me a little bit. I just think it just really, I needed to go back to just being true to who I am. And, and they can see that, you know what I mean? The world can see that it's out there, you know what I mean? So, it's family first, and just being true to who I am. That's very important. And I think that's something you got to carry on with you in life. When you got to remember when the lights turn off and you're not in the limelight anymore, and things kind of die down a little bit. It's like, what do you want to be remembered as? You know what I mean? I don't want to be remembered as some jackass that just tried to force this persona to try to get more buys, you know what I mean? Or whatever, and I'd rather just be remembered as the guy that was just humble, grounded, fought hard, and was just a man of the family, a man of the fans. And I'd rather be remembered as that than a guy that just tried to sell pay-per-views being a jackass. It doesn't
Yeah,
fit
man.
me. There's some guys that are good at it.
Yeah.
There's some guys that aren't.
Yeah.
I was one of the guys that wasn't. It didn't fit me
And
very
again, it's authenticity. It's like if you represent yourself as you are, people will gravitate towards you. People like that. People don't want fake, and people see through fake, especially nowadays with social media. It's so easy to see, and we're so savvy with looking at someone and just realizing if they're true or if they're fake. It just with human evolution, we're see through people very quickly nowadays. So
very.
I think authenticity is key, and I think that's probably why people gravitate towards you now more than before. And that's I'm happy to see that, and I hope more fighters realize this, because I think I do see a lot of them try to 50 G's baby and try to go the McGregor route a little bit because they're new and they're trying to get their name out there. But I think just a tip for everyone would be just be who you are, and eventually people will gravitate towards you.
I totally agree. You know what I mean? And it's the person that you get on camera is the person you're going to get off camera. And that's, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I think that that's important. It's like that's how authentic I want to be. I don't want anybody to be surprised when they meet me. Like, it's like, even though it might be beneficial when if somebody was to see Colby on TV and they're like, this guy's a dick, and then they meet him in real life and they're like, wow, this guy's actually really nice. It's like, yeah, that's a good thing. But it's like, I'd rather just be the same guy on both sides of the camera. I'd rather be the same guy. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to compete hard when, from bell to bell. I don't got to be a nice guy. I'm going to go out and I'm going to smash somebody. I'm going to go out and I'm going to really try to put the hurt on somebody and get my hand raised. But outside of that, I just want to be the same guy all the time. You know what I mean? And I think that's very important. You know what I mean? That's how my parents raised me. They raised me to be humble. They didn't raise me to be brash. And I have confidence, but I don't have to admit my confidence all the time. I can keep it to myself. I can keep it between my ears. It's just very important to just be humble and be the same guy on and off the camera.
100%. Do you have a favorite fight or performance where you felt like you were in the zone? Like sometimes you have music on and you're training like shit, like I'm in the zone. Like
Yeah.
same type of feeling where you were just like, he can't hurt me. I'm just going to destroy this guy. Like the best you've ever felt in a fight?
Man, there's been a couple times I felt pretty good. I think that a favorite fight, I'd probably say the Carlos Condit fight, just because I had a lot of things working against me that fight. 2 losses in a row, new weight class, having to fight a guy I've looked up to for a long time. I was not like, during the warm-ups and stuff, my head wasn't in it. I was really just like, I forgot my mouthpiece at the freaking hotel, and we couldn't find it because I forgot my mouthpiece. I forgot my mouthpiece in Las Vegas at the PI, either at the PI or at the Airbnb. And we were staying, that's when they moved the event from Las Vegas to California. So between Vegas and California, I lost my mouthpiece. And, dude, I just remember that I was already like kind of riding the wave on fight day, and that's pretty normal. You're always kind of having some nerves or whatever. But when I lost my mouthpiece, It just was like a snowball effect. I feel like internally, I was just like, my infrastructure was fractured and everything's starting to come down. And I'm like, oh no, you know what I mean? Like, this is bad. And like, I worked with Mike Valley that fight, and he said he'd heard that Carlos had one of the best camps he'd had in so long, and he's knocking guys out in training and all this and that. And I'm like, new weight class. Like, am I meant to be a welterweight? I didn't even have a hard weight cut. Like, Carlos is tall. Like, fuck it. You know what I mean? 2 losses in a row. Like, I was not all the way there. So like, once the fight took off, I got in my zone, and then that was a very special win for me because I just feel like I had so much shit going against me, and it was important for me to get that win because, 3 losses in a row. It's like, I commend any guy that can get back on the winning track and keep their head on their shoulders in that type of situation. But I'm just glad that I didn't have to go through that, and I was able to get my hand raised and do it in emphatic fashion.
Yeah. I mean, how much psychological work or meditation, if any, do you do before a fight or during training camp?
Not a lot of meditation, but I definitely do a lot of manifesting, a lot of visualization. You know what I mean? I always have an idea of how I'm going to win a fight. I'm pretty real with myself. I keep it pretty honest with myself. Like, I kind of knew, like RDA. It's like, I'm gonna have to fight this guy from bell to bell. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be. It's not like I'm confident I can submit anybody in the world. I'm confident that I could get the finish the best way I can. You know what I mean? I'm confident I can do that against anybody, but I'm pretty honest with myself when it comes to certain matchups, and I knew that's not going to be an easy one. And so I kind of had visualized, like, I'm going to have to kind of go through the trenches, and I'm going to have to fight this guy from bell to bell to get the win. And there's other fights where I visualized the submission and how I did it, and it made it happen exactly the way I envisioned it in my head. So I definitely a lot of visualization for sure.
Yeah. That's I think that's a important part of fighting. I think I was talking earlier today. I had a conversation with the guy who was a mountaineer and he summited Everest, and we also talked about it. Like, just there's a point where your body and your cardio, everything just it gives up on you, and all you have left is the mind, and it's mind over matter. And I feel like the guys who have the strongest mind are just the ones that are able to push through. It doesn't matter if it's fight, if it's mountaineering, if it's in business. Like the
Yeah.
mind is the strongest asset you have.
The mind will always break before the body. 100%.
Yeah.
The mind will always break before the body. You know what I mean? So sometimes you gotta rely on your internal workings, and those will be the things that can get you through a lot of situations. You know what I mean? When the mind starts to go, that's when the body starts to go. So you gotta, as long as you can stay focused, you'll know when you'll know you're truly tired when your body just shuts down. You know what I mean? Not when you choose for it to shut down. Not when you choose to be tired. It's when your mind's still in it, but your body just starts to fail you. That's when that's when you did things the right way. And I that's the way I try to approach my training. That's the way I try to approach my fights. Is you just go until the body quits, not until I choose to quit. Don't make the choice to be tired. Let your body make that decision for you while your head is still in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, so I read a I read a funny story that you would tell. I can't remember who you told, but I read it somewhere. It's on the internet, so it has to be true. But basically, before your Dariush fight, you
Oh
said that
yeah.
you almost crapped, you said that you almost crapped your pants, which
Yep.
totally legit. Like I almost crap my pants before every like main event. I'm just like so hyped, like the adrenaline's running. Like I don't know how these guys are doing it. So what's that story?
Well, what happened is I was in the locker room getting warmed up. Everything felt good, and I we get to the curtain before we walk out, and I remember the guy said 11 seconds. I'll never forget this. The guy said, I don't know why he said 11 seconds, not 10 or 20 or whatever. It's 11 seconds. 11 seconds till you walk. And right when he said that, it just hit me like, whoa, I gotta take a shit. And it was like not a solid one. It was like a holy crap. I'm about to, it's gonna be nasty. And so I like turned to my coach and I was like, dude, I'm about to shit my pants. I got to go to the bathroom. So I say the same
Yeah.
thing to the guy that told me 11 seconds. And I was like, I got to run to the bathroom first. And so I turned to run away and he grabbed me this is when we had like the Reebok kits. So he just basically grabbed me by my
Yeah.
hood, spins me around. I wish I could remember the guy's name. I know him by face, but he's like, no, you're walking now. And he just pushed me out the curtain. And so I just was immediately walking, like strangleholds rolling. It's on. Like, it's like, we're going.
No.
I got in the octagon, told Joe Rogan to pull his headset off. So I was like, dude, I'm about to shit my pants. I need to know the rules. I'm trying to get as much info as I can. I'm wearing white shorts. We're talking career suicide is imminent type thing. Like, you shit your pants in a fight, you're pretty much done. There's no coming back. So, and then like, as the fight's playing out, like the whole game plan was like low stance. When he throws the leg kicks, we're going to crash him. We're going to hit him with punches, get in the clinch, do all that stuff. And I came out that first round just standing I looked like a nutcracker guy. I was so tall and erect. He's just chopping my legs. I'm just like bouncing all over the place. And in between rounds, I sit on the stool. My coach is talking to me. I'm not even listening. I just kind of like sat on the stool and like gave myself a little subtle push with the stomach. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay now. I'm okay. It's passed. And then he's like, "Did you hear anything I said?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." Like, didn't hear anything he said. Go out, win the fight in a minute. And then my coach actually has the video of this backstage. I like get out of the octagon and like grab a beer from a fan. I chug the beer, give it back to him. And then I just take off running backstage. Like, we're talking like it hit me again. And so I just flew backstage. Like, I'm sprinting straight to the bathroom. I knew exactly where the bathroom was. Sprint backstage, go right in the bathroom, start doing my business. And Joe Silva is former matchmaker of the UFC.
Yeah.
He comes walking in, and I'm in the the stall, and he's in the urinal, and I'm doing my business. And Joe, he has this kind of weird voice where he talks like this, and he's like, "Oh man, Chiesa, you really did have to take a shit." I'm like, "Yeah, I did, Joe. Thank you. Let me do my business."
So
Yeah,
privacy, please.
yeah. But I mean, for me telling Rogan, it just like you traveled amongst the guys. There's the guys with the headsets in front, so he kind of caught wind of it, and he thought it was pretty funny. But I actually got to get ready to head to physical therapy right now, so I got to break off a little early.
No worries, man. I know we were talking about an hour. But that story was hilarious. Yeah, that was hilarious, man. I loved it.
One for the
Cool.
ages.
So Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you did it, man. I can barely, like, if I have to go, I run home. Like, there's no fighting happening. It's not happening at all. So,
One, I think if Dariush would have went to the body, things might have went a little different. But he stuck to the leg.
all right,
If he would have kicked me in the gut, or maybe like a good
that
body
was
lock,
the end of it.
I think things could have been pretty messy.
Well, maybe if it would have been like today, like how there are no fans, so everybody can hear everything, he might have heard you, and he might have changed up the tactics.
They would have heard me in the back. They would have heard me before the walkout. I gotta take a
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Right? Yeah, I don't know where the bathroom is at the Apex too, so I would have been lost. I would have been like, "Fuck, hell."
That's too good, man. Well, Mike, man, I want to thank you, man. I had a blast. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope to see you in the octagon soon, man. I really hope you get a fight this year.
Thank you, sir. I'll be back before you know it. It's good to finally make this happen, and stay safe out there. Batten down the hatches. Don't let the storm get the best of you.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, it'll just pass and not hit us too bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. All right. Thanks again, Mike.